Hello, welcome to Spooky Shadows.
The hospital stood like a monolith against the night sky, its silhouette hauntingly sharp against the moonlit backdrop. Once a bustling centre of healing, it now lay derelict, doors gaping like the mouths of forgotten souls. Windows were shattered, resembling jagged teeth, and vines crept up the crumbling brickwork as if trying to reclaim the structure for the earth. The air was thick with an uneasy silence, punctuated only by the distant hoot of an owl and the rustling of leaves in the wind. The old sign that hung above the entrance, barely legible now, read St. Augustine's Hospital. It swung lazily in the breeze, creaking eerily, adding to the atmosphere of neglect and decay. Graffiti adorned the walls, remnants of past intruders who dared to venture within its shadowy halls. Yet, despite its desolation, there was a certain allure to the building, a promise of secrets waiting to be uncovered. A chill ran through the air, more biting than the usual November freeze. It was as if the hospital exhaled its own breath, cold and foreboding, whispering tales of its dark past. Shadows seemed to dance on the walls, and the dim light of the moon cast eerie shapes across the broken asphalt of the parking lot. It was a place frozen in time, holding on to echoes of pain and sorrow that once filled its wards. Even at a distance, one could feel the weight of the building's history, a palpable tension that seemed to press down on anyone who dared approach. It was a place that had seen too much, holding memories that were eager to be forgotten, but never could be. The hospital was waiting, patient, timeless, and ready to reveal itself to those brave enough to enter. Amelia stood at the edge of the hospital's property, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. She was drawn to places like this, compelled by an insatiable curiosity that often led her to explore the forgotten corners of the world. Today, her mission was simple yet daunting, to document the eerie beauty of St. Augustine's Hospital for her urban exploration blog. Her camera hung around her neck, a trusted companion in these journeys into the unknown. Dressed in layers to ward off the biting cold, Amelia took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves before stepping forward. She had heard the stories, whispers of ghostly apparitions and strange occurrences that plagued the old hospital. But skepticism was her shield, and she wore it proudly, convinced that the true horror lay in the decay of forgotten places, not in their spectral inhabitants. The path leading to the entrance was overgrown, the weeds clawing at her ankles as she moved forward. Each step felt heavy with anticipation, and as she crossed the threshold into the hospital, a sense of foreboding washed over her. The air inside was musty, heavy with the scent of mold and something indefinable, a lingering essence of despair. Yet, despite the discomfort, Amelia felt alive, invigorated by the mystery that lay ahead. She paused in the entryway, taking in the sight before her. The interior was shrouded in darkness, with only slivers of moonlight piercing through the broken windows. It was a labyrinth of shadows and silence, each corridor leading deeper into the heart of the hospital. Amelia felt the weight of history pressing in on her from all sides, a silent cacophony of voices from the past urging her to turn back, yet compelling her to press on. As Amelia ventured deeper into the hospital, the temperature seemed to drop with each step. Her breath fogged in the air, and she pulled her jacket tighter around her. The corridors stretched out like veins, leading her further into the darkness. The beam of her flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing glimpses of peeling paint and rusted gurneys, relics of a time when these halls echoed with life. She paused to take a photo, the flash momentarily illuminating the space around her. That's when she heard it, a whisper, soft and indistinct like the rustling of paper. Amelia whipped around, her flashlight sweeping across the empty corridor. There was nothing there. She took a deep breath, telling herself it was just the wind or perhaps a small animal that had made its home among the ruins. But the sound lingered, a persistent murmur that seemed to follow her as she moved. Determined to push past her unease, Amelia continued her exploration, moving cautiously from room to room. Each one held remnants of its past. Beds with rusted frames, shattered glass scattered across the floor, and faded medical charts hanging limply from walls. The sense of abandonment was overwhelming, yet there was something else, a feeling that the hospital was not as empty as it seemed. The whispers returned, now more pronounced, echoing off the walls as if the very building was trying to communicate. Amelia's heart raced, the sound drawing her towards a door at the end of the hallway. It was ajar, the wood swollen from years of neglect. Beyond it lay darkness, thicker and more impenetrable than before. She hesitated, the rational part of her mind screaming to turn back, but the pull of the unknown was too strong to resist. The room beyond the door was a large ward, its high ceilings and many windows giving it an eerie grandeur. Moonlight spilled in, casting ghostly patterns on the floor. Amelia's flashlight revealed rows of empty beds, their sheets still rumpled, as if the patients had only recently left. A sense of profound loneliness enveloped her, as if the room itself mourned the loss of those who once occupied it. Amelia moved slowly, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. She reached out to touch one of the beds, feeling the cold metal beneath her fingers. It was then she noticed the faint sound of music, drifting through the air like a forgotten lullaby. It was a melody from another time, crackling and distorted, yet undeniably present. She turned, trying to locate the source, but the room was empty, save for the shadows and the dust. The music grew louder, enveloping her, and with it came the voices, soft, pleading, and filled with sorrow. Amelia felt a chill run down her spine, her curiosity giving way to fear. These were not just echoes of the past. They were memories etched into the very fabric of the hospital, replaying over and over, trapped in a loop of despair. She backed away, her mind racing. This was no longer a simple exploration. The hospital was alive, its history woven into its very walls. Each sound, each whisper was a testament to the lives that had been lived and lost within these confines. As the music faded, Amelia felt a presence, something unseen yet undeniably near. It was as if the hospital was aware of her, watching her every move, waiting for her next step. Amelia's heart thudded in her chest as she left the ward behind, her senses heightened to every creak and groan of the old building. The air felt charged, as if alive with electricity. She moved through the corridors with caution, her flashlight dancing over walls lined with faded photographs and medical charts, remnants of the hospital's bustling past. Each image seemed to watch her, eyes following her every move. It wasn't long before she felt it again, a presence, intangible but undeniable, lurking at the edge of her perception. It was as if the shadows themselves were closing in, whispering secrets she couldn't quite understand. The sensation was unnerving, and despite her best efforts to ignore it, Amelia found herself glancing over her shoulder more frequently, half expecting to see something emerge from the darkness. The hospital was a maze, each turn leading her deeper into its heart. She stumbled upon what appeared to be an old operating theatre, its tiered seating presiding over an empty stage. The sight was surreal, and Amelia could almost imagine the room filled with doctors and students, the air buzzing with anticipation and knowledge. But now it was silent, the only audience being the shadows that clung to every surface. It was here, in this silent amphitheatre, that the presence became almost tangible. The air was heavy, pressing in on her from all sides. Amelia felt a chill run through her, and she knew she was not alone. She could feel eyes upon her, unseen yet ever watchful, a ghostly audience waiting for the next act. She stood frozen, her mind racing as she grappled with the reality of her situation, the fear threatening to overwhelm her. Amelia's resolve wavered as she left the operating theatre, her mind a whirlwind of fear and disbelief. She tried to rationalize what she was experiencing, but the evidence was overwhelming. The hospital was more than just brick and mortar. It was a vessel for the souls that had once inhabited its halls. As she moved through the dim corridors, the whispers followed her, growing louder, more insistent. She reached a stairwell, its steps leading down into the depths of the hospital. A sense of dread filled her, but something compelled her to descend. The lower she went, the colder it became, the air thick with an oppressive silence. At the bottom was a door, slightly ajar, emitting a faint glow from within. Amelia hesitated, knowing instinctively that whatever lay beyond was significant, a key to the mysteries that surrounded her. Pushing the door open, Amelia entered a room that defied her expectations. It was filled with old records, charts stacked high on shelves, and photographs scattered across a large table. A single bulb flickered overhead, casting erratic shadows. As she stepped closer, she realized the photos were of the hospital's patients, their faces haunted and weary, each telling its own story of suffering and loss. Amongst the papers, Amelia found a journal, its pages yellowed with age. It belonged to a doctor, one who had worked at the hospital during its final days. The entries spoke of experiments, unethical and terrifying, carried out in the name of progress. The revelation was chilling, and Amelia understood that the hospital's hauntings were born of real horrors, the souls of those who had suffered unwilling to rest. The journal slipped from Amelia's hands as the weight of its contents sank in. Her mind was a tumult of thoughts, each one more terrifying than the last. The hospital's dark past was alive around her, the whispers now an insistent chorus echoing off the walls. She felt trapped, the corridors closing in, the shadows more menacing with each passing moment. Panic clawed at her throat, and she stumbled back, her flashlight flickering wildly. As Amelia retraced her steps, the once familiar path seemed foreign, twisted by the fear that gnawed at her. The hospital was a living entity, its very walls pulsating with a malevolent energy. Each step was a struggle, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she fought to maintain her composure. The whispers grew louder, their tone shifting from mournful to accusatory, as if blaming her for their pain. In her haste, Amelia found herself lost, the corridors blending into one another in a confusing maze of darkness. The presence she had felt earlier was closer now, an oppressive force that seemed to reach out, clawing at her sanity. She could feel her grip on reality slipping, the fear threatening to consume her entirely. Her camera, once a source of comfort, now felt like a useless weight around her neck. Desperation drove her onwards, her mind a blur of terror and confusion. The hospital's secrets were no longer hidden, its history laid bare before her. But the knowledge brought no solace, only a deeper sense of dread. Amelia knew she had to leave, to escape the clutches of this haunted place before it claimed her as it had so many others. Her only hope was to find her way back to the entrance to the safety of the outside world. With renewed determination, Amelia pushed forward, her mind focused on escape. The hospital seemed to sense her intent, the shadows thickening, the whispers now a cacophony that filled her ears. Each step was a battle against the fear that threatened to paralyze her, but she refused to succumb. She had come too far to be trapped by the ghosts of the past. The corridors twisted and turned, each one more indistinguishable than the last. But Amelia pressed on, her flashlight guiding her through the maze. She could feel the presence following her, an unseen force that grew stronger with each passing moment. It was as if the hospital itself was trying to hold her back, to keep its secrets safe from the outside world. Finally she saw it, a sliver of moonlight cutting through the darkness, the promise of freedom just beyond. It was the entrance, the same door she had crossed hours ago, now an exit leading back to reality. With every ounce of strength, Amelia sprinted towards it, the whispers rising to a fever pitch, a final attempt to pull her back into the depths. The moment she crossed the threshold, the air changed. The whispers ceased, silenced as if by an invisible barrier. The cold, oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by the crisp night air. Amelia stumbled into the parking lot, her heart racing, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. She turned back, looking at the hospital one last time. Its windows stared back, empty and lifeless, as if nothing had happened, as if it were just an ordinary building. Amelia stood outside the hospital, her breath visible in the cold night air. The experience had left her shaken, the reality of what she had witnessed hard to comprehend. The journal, the whispers, the presence, all of it was real. Yet it felt like a nightmare from which she had barely escaped. She knew she could never return, not after what she had discovered. But the mystery of St. Augustine's Hospital lingered, its secrets still buried within its crumbling walls. Amelia's blog post would tell the world of her journey, of the horrors she had uncovered, but she doubted anyone would believe her. The hospital's history was too dark, too surreal to be accepted as truth. Yet she knew the spirits of those lost within its halls would continue to haunt the place, their stories untold, their pain unresolved. As she walked away, Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that the hospital was watching her, its presence reaching out, a silent promise that its secrets would remain hidden. The knowledge was unsettling, a reminder that some places were never meant to be disturbed. The hospital stood as a testament to that truth, a monument to the forgotten and the damned, its ghostly inhabitants forever trapped in a cycle of suffering. Amelia vowed never to return, to leave the past where it belonged, buried within the walls of St. Augustine's. Yet as she drove away, she couldn't help but wonder if the hospital's story would ever truly be over, or if its haunting presence would continue to reach out, drawing in those who dared to seek its secrets. The thought sent a shiver down her spine, a final reminder of the chilling tale she would